My name is Federico Ardila. I am a mathematician, originally from Colombia. I grew up there, then I moved to the United States, and I am now a professor in San Francisco State University, California. And I'm still very active with the mathematical community in Colombia, where I also have a position.
Hello, Federico. Uh, what is one exciting thing about being a mathematician?
Do I have to choose just one?
No.
I think there's many exciting things about being a mathematician. I think maybe the first one and what drew me to mathematics is just the beauty. It's just a beautiful subject, and I think it's good for us humans to be exposed to beauty and to have a job where you get to deal with beautiful things and you get to understand beautiful things. I think it's really wonderful. I think if I could say another one, for me, mathematics really opened up the world in some way. It's thanks to mathematics that I first got to travel outside of Colombia, that I got to learn that actually in this career, especially in the academic path, it's not necessarily the most lucrative career in terms of money, but it is a career where you really get to see the world, you get to connect with the world, you get to meet lots of amazing people. And actually, one of my favorite things is the people that I get to know all over the world, and in particular, the students that I get to work with. It's just a real luxury.
Talking about other people, do you have a role model who motivated you to become a mathematician, or someone you look up to, and how has this influenced your path?
So, in Colombia, I came out of the Mathematics Olympiads program, and I think many of the mathematicians in my generation in Colombia came out of that program. I have to say that I didn't really know what mathematicians did, and it was kind of unclear to me what it meant to be a mathematician, so I didn't know that's what I wanted to do. But I was surrounded by a lot of people. This was a program that was started by Mary Falk de Lozada, an American woman who moved to Colombia to start it, and she had a very big influence on me. And one thing that I loved about this program is that it was a program where the people that were just a couple of years older than us taught us, and then we would teach the people who were 2 years younger than us. And so there was just kind of a community that I was a part of, and even though I don't think it was very clear to us because Colombia does not have a huge mathematical community, I don't think that it was very clear to us where we were headed, but at least there was kind of a sense of, okay, there's some people that are 2 years ahead of me that are doing cool things, and it sounds fun to do that. When I got to the US, I have to say that it was a little bit hard at first to find my community. But now that I have been working for many years, I have found a different kind of role model, which is that especially in the US, there's a really strong tradition and a really strong community of Black, Latinx, and indigenous mathematicians who are faculty members and who have done really impressive programs that are not only doing interesting mathematics, but also making sure that all sectors of society get access to those opportunities. And there's too many of these people to name just a few of them, but I think that I've been really inspired by their work, and it has really influenced me to not only care about the mathematics, which is very beautiful, but also to make sure that anybody who is interested in this gets the opportunities to do it.
Okay, and related to this, what obstacles have you encountered along your journey in science that you believe are specific to lack of diversity, and how did you overcome them?
Maybe let me start with an advantage that I had because of lack of diversity, just to kind of try to give the full picture. As I mentioned, I've started being a mathematician in Colombia, where the assumption is that a mathematician looks like me. And so I was a part of a community that supported me, that was really influential for me, and that I think really is a very important reason why I'm a mathematician. And I mentioned this because my sister, who was a couple of years older than me, went into the very same program that was so positively influential to me. And because it was such a male-centered environment, she just hated it and left mathematics. In every situation, sometimes we are we have advantages, sometimes we have disadvantages, and I think that became very clear to me how a space that can be so positive for me can be the same space that drives other people away from mathematics. I think I was lucky that I grew up in a mathematical community where I was supported, I was believed in. I think people really believed in me. There was never a doubt that I could do mathematics. Although I think in Colombia, and I think, when we talk about decolonizing mathematics, I think one colonial legacy that we have is that in places like Colombia, we were educated to believe ourselves to be a little bit less than European mathematicians, than American mathematicians, than Asian mathematicians. Just like I think in Europe, colonization said, we are better scientists than people from Latin America. And so I knew that I was a strong mathematician for Colombia, but I have to say that this colonial legacy, which is very old, still actually affected me in a very personal way. And I think, if I'm honest with you, it's only very recently that I finally have come to believe, you know what, I'm as good as anybody else, and it's difficult to when those messages can actually go very deep. I think maybe I would also mention that when I moved to the U.S., I think I mentioned already clearly that mathematics, when I was in high school in the Math Olympia program, was a very social thing. I had a very nice community. When I got to the United States, I became very isolated. I found that I just felt very different from everybody else around me. There I found all of a sudden that I went from being in the majority to being in the minority. And I could see how that actually, that just made me very isolated. I think it took me some time to understand what a shame that was, because there were amazing mathematicians doing all kinds of things, and I just felt so uncomfortable that I was just never around. And I don't think that I was like really badly mistreated by anybody, but it wasn't a comfortable environment for me. And so I didn't participate in it, and I think there were a lot of informal opportunities that I could have had that I just didn't know were there. And so that's something that I think about a lot now when I try to create mathematical spaces. I try to be very, very mindful of, just that, always asking myself, is everybody feeling comfortable? Is everybody feeling welcome? Also asking myself, who is not here, because we already missed some people. So how do we make sure that other people get to come into this space? Because ultimately, I've come to believe very strongly that spaces that are affirming, that are welcoming for everybody, actually benefit every single person, not just, sometimes people talk about these things as if you were benefiting the poor minorities. It's not like that at all, actually. I think when you are able to make an environment that is welcoming for people who have been more excluded, it actually turns out to be an environment that is very welcoming for everybody and that everybody benefits more from.
Reflecting on the challenges in your career, is there any advice for aspiring or early career mathematicians who are facing the same obstacles as you or anyone you met?
I always find it difficult to give advice. I would rather talk to you for 30 minutes and hear your story, and then maybe we can talk about some specific things. I somehow have trouble believing in universal advice, but still, I think maybe some universal things that I can say is, one is that it's really important to not forget who you are and to keep being yourself. And actually, when you are in a space where you feel like you're very much in the minority, you feel you're very different from other people, there's sometimes an inclination or a pressure to kind of forget what are the things that make you feel alive, that make you happy. And actually, I think that those things are really essential. I don't think that I would have graduated if I had not been playing football all the time, if I had not been dancing salsa all the time. And it's kind of counterintuitive, because somebody might say, oh, he's doing all these fun things instead of studying. But I actually think that for me, those things were essential to be able to do the mathematical work that I was trying to do. Another thing that I would mention, and maybe I can just tell you a brief anecdote. So about a few years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I had this situation where I was somehow doing the most interesting research of my life. I had just won a big teaching award, and somehow professionally, it seemed like things were really going my way very well. Um, I had an accident on the football field, which gave me a knock to the head. I had a concussion that actually had to make me completely stop everything that I was doing. Um, and I couldn't do math, I couldn't teach. I had to just there were a lot of limitations. I couldn't talk to people, I couldn't watch TV. I had to spend a lot of time with myself. And I have to say that it was a scary time because I was actually not sure that I would continue to be a mathematician. And I have known people who had this situation and the concussion was serious enough that they had to leave mathematics. Um, and it was actually now that I'm fully recovered, I feel very thankful for that moment because it was a moment of really reckoning. So what if I'm not a mathematician? Is that so much of a problem? Am I a human being who is alive and is able to relate to people and is able to love people and is able to receive love from people? And that's so much more important than mathematics. And I think sometimes academia can make us think that we are only worth the theorems that we prove or the papers that we write. And I think I'm very thankful for that moment to really remember my worth has nothing to do with that. And I think when I'm able to remember that, I'm just able to do better work. So I think that's maybe the simple thing that I would say is you're a wonderful, amazing human being, whether you're proving theorems or not. And then if you remember that, I think the theorems are going to be stronger.